Hey guys, the sand clone guide I've been making has finally arrived. I've been waiting on this video partially because of my own development on mechanically understanding sand clone and also wanting to wait for MK to be on its final patches in case anything would have changed for sand clone in the gameplay side of things for it. I really did my best to make it as easy as possible to understand and execute, so I hope everything about sand clone makes sense to you after this video. With that being said, let's get started with the basic mechanics of sand clone. Throws and any attack with 1+3 inputs make the clone disappear, and I'll be showing all those attacks used when showing the clone disappearing, so I'll get back to you when the next rule comes up for sand clone. Whenever you use clone 4-3, it ends the clone sequence at all times. If you hold an input when coming out of sand clone summon, your attack will come out at the earliest frame. So in that clip I held 4-3 and it came out at the earliest frame when the screen unfroze. Against a frozen opponent, clone's hit reactions don't apply. Down 2s I don't think scale for the sand clone, so the damage you get should be full or way less scaled than normal. Sand clone has some gapless strings that normally Geras would have gaps in. 2-1 is gapless from the sand clone, and 4-4-4 is also gapless from the sand clone. Sand clone can combo into itself with certain strings and normals. You can't use pokes to combo off of clone, and vice versa. Clone's pokes can't combo into your combos. So 1-2-2, 1+3, it has that ender to it, but when you're in 1-2-2 hit stun, the opponent is in a state that they can be attacked that allows the 1+3 part to follow up afterwards. So if you do 1-2-2, they're still in a combo state, and that allows you to set up OTGs, and it's pretty much where you force the opponent to stand up and block or be part of a combo. The sand clone can allow you to OTG, and you can also OTG with the clone. And you can OTG the opponent off the ground with any attack that isn't a high attack. So some weird things I fully don't understand with specifically Johnny Cage's Fatal Blow. There's been times where I've inputted my clone and it seemed like the Fatal Blow would eat my inputs. Speaking of fatal blows, when you're using Sand Clone, you're completely locked out of Kameo attacks, and that includes fatal blow intos like Motaro and Sector Missile. Alright guys, bear with me on this one. This is going to be the hardest part of the video, but Sand Clone can be used to extend combos or be used for mix-ups. There are some restrictions built in the Sand Clone that will trigger an auto block for the defender, so it's helpful to understand when and why an auto block will occur. Against a standing opponent, if Sand Clone starts a sequence, Geras has to finish the sequence the clone started in order to extend the combo. You can't do a sequence where clone starts, Geras attacks, and then have clone pick up and finish the same sequence on a standing opponent. Otherwise, an auto block will trigger. The only way for this scenario to happen all in one combo is against a juggled opponent. If Geras starts the sequence, the clone can't finish it, it will lead to an auto block. The clone can land only one hit before auto block triggers on a standing opponent. In this first example, Sand Clone is going to do a sequence and Geras is just going to be chilling, doing nothing, and the Sand Clone gets 4 hits without any drops. Now in this clip, the Sand Clone is going to do the same sequence, but because Geras is whiffing a down 2, it causes an auto block. This also counts for auto block triggers, as things unwhiff. In this clip, Geras is going to try starting off with a raw forward 4 into clone, but the clone sequence drops after its first hit lands because of auto block. In this clip, clone's going to try starting the sequence, Geras is going to try to chime in, but this also causes an auto block. In this clip, you're going to see Sand Clone start a sequence and Geras finish the sequence because the animation of time stop is so long, it all combos in one sequence without any drops because Geras is in the animation of time stop. Now in this example, the same exact combo, except instead of using time stop, I use Sand Burst and it causes an auto block to trigger. This is because you finished your animation faster and the Sand Clone didn't finish its sequence. Now in this example, this is one way to bypass the auto block rules. If you can get your opponent in a knockdown state or airborne state, then you can bypass the rules that usually trigger auto block on a standing opponent. This sequence works because both you and the clone have one hit before an auto block triggers if you guys are both attacking the opponent at the same time. So because you're putting the opponent airborne with your one attack, this doesn't make an auto block occur. Now these clips are just Kameo specific sequences. So this is the sequence you'll do into Sand Clone with Motaro. You'll do 1-2 Sand Clone after teleport. With Kung Lao's teleport, you're going to do teleport, hold, and then jump to Sand Clone. And then with Chameleon, you're going to use Fan Lift into jump 2, back 1 clone. These are all the best, most consistent Sand Clone setups with these cameos that I've found for like higher gravity combos. Now this is, as far as I know, this is the max damage you can get off a standing frozen opponent. I couldn't fit back 1-2, 4-2, 4-2 with the clone, but in this example, this is the Phantom Blaze combo I like to call it. This is for like the max damage. In this clip, you can get the clones back 1-2 and 4-2, 4 all to come out. 4-2, 4-2. In this guide, I put slowdown clips and screenshots of the clone sequences, so I really hope that helps in these Sand Clone examples. I didn't do them for all, but for the harder ones I did them. As cool as this clone sandwich sequence is, I wouldn't use it too much because there's no OTG involved. But also another thing to keep in mind I forgot to mention is when you do this setup or any other clone setup that involves the clone sandwiching the opponent, you have to reverse your inputs for clone and treat it like you're on player 2 side when you're inputting them. So for me to get the clone to do forward 1s, I actually had to input back 1 since I'm inputting those inputs from player 1 side. Sand clone is essentially like a projectile, so you can actually send 50-50s to your opponent as the sand clone. You can also use snap to convert off of clone sweep, but you can't really hit confirm that, unfortunately. You have to commit to that, but it does reach a lot farther than forward 4-4 does. The overhead also has lots of reach, so that's nice. And you actually get 2 guesses with sweep, since it doesn't disappear like forward 3 does. But again, you have to commit to sweep and to snap if you want to go that route. A cool sand clone setup you can go for is keeping your opponent standing and being able to reset for another 50-50. Sand clone setup you can do since your opponent's still standing. And I also like this one because it's safe on reversal armor no matter what armor comes your way. And on hit, if they just get snuck in by the low attack, you can combo off with the sand clone. So they're pretty much jailed into that and have to either guess on block, or if they just take the hit, then you get a free combo. Here's a montage of multiple 50-50 scenarios with the clone. In this specific setup, if your opponent gets hit by the sand clone stand 1, then this will all be one combo, but if they're already blocking beforehand, chances are they're going to keep blocking. It would be crazy to just let go of block. As I was editing the video, Demoralized DMs me some new OTG sand clone tech, and unfortunately the command grab can't be used as a 50-50, but these setups are actually really easy to do. But in this case, the overhead is actually unsafe in this setup, and if you do your low attack 50-50s, then they're minus, but they're safe. When you're using your low option for this 50-50 setup, I prefer using sweep just because it's easier. And if you use forward 4, it still works, but if you forward 4 and try to follow up after you opened up your opponent too soon, then they won't be airborne in time, which will then force a combo drop. This, in my opinion, is the best OTG setup, is when you use your cross-up jump attack into your 50-50, or if you're in the corner, you do a straight hit into your 50-50. In this clip, for the low overhead low, you do the same sequence you would input for the clone, but you have to just delay your forward 4 a lot. So this clip, this is an example of Katana getting OTG'd, but unfortunately, we have some guest characters with smaller leg regions, or leg hurt box regions, so the low overhead low does not work on these characters, these privileged ass characters, unfortunately. Here's a montage of command grab clone setups. That was the OG setup you just saw with the stand ones. Now this is the demoralized. That's like his favorite command grab setup, I feel. So in my opinion, when you're using these sand clone setups, in my opinion it's the best to use them as an OTG, because if you use them on knockdown or anything that's not a forced restand, your opponent can unfortunately panic and make your 2-bar setup just end up being a drop or something that's not super high damaging. So I recommend using them off of OTGs and forced mix-ups. But you can do them as knockdowns if you have the read on your opponent or just feel like going for it. So there is an unfortunate thing of doing sand clone off of 4-4-4. If they're slightly farther away than usual on block, then you can end up dropping your 4-2-4 follow-up and you're forced to use back 1-2 follow-up. It doesn't happen super often, so I would only use 4-4-4 clone if you're touching your opponent like as close as possible. Now onto the harder things to execute. This is what every Geras player has been telling me for so long to make a breakdown on, and it's the OTG command grab setup. This is the easier version with the down 1 tick throw, but it gets harder when you get to using the forward 1 tick throw. Now this is with the forward 1 tick throw. This is like a 1 or 2 frame link, and what's cool about the command grab setups with clone, if you land your tick throw at like the earliest frame, you don't get scale damage, and that usually happens with forward 1 tick throw. So if your opponent knows you're going for a command grab reset, they can either duck block immediately, kind of like how you defend against Sector, or Cyrax, I'm sorry, like with the bomb setup, but they can also take the hit and be like freed from the command grab reset, but there is counterplay to this. If you read they're going to take the forward 1 or duck block and try to avoid the command grab, you can actually confirm into forward 1-2 Sandstorm, and the clone will allow you to combo that. Unfortunately, if you're using the down 1 tick throw clone, you don't have the option to use Sandstorm to counterplay your opponent if they try to escape your command grab setup, like you do with the forward 1 tick throw clone setup. So you kind of have to choose to either do the easier down 1 tick throw clone setup at the cost of your counterplay, or go for the harder forward 1 tick throw clone setup with the counterplay. But honestly, the forward 1 tick throw is a lot harder. So I threw this in as a bonus, and I know every person has different connections with their opponents, but shout out to the homie Toby. During our sets we had like a 60 to 65 ping range, and I'm always complaining about how the sand clone setups are like impossible to do online, but I tried my best showing some timings and clips of when to input your sand clone in case you're playing online in like tournaments, stuff like that, or ranked. So I hope this is helpful. NRS also implemented a gameplay feature I tried using. It's like add online lag into your offline matches, and I didn't get confirmation on this, but I want to guess it's like around 5 to 7 frames of lag. But yeah, they do have that feature in the gameplay settings if you want to try it out for yourself, like in the offline setting. Now, if you have the execution to land the forward 1 tick throw clone setup online, then you're a beast, because I couldn't do this in a real match against Toby. I like had to tell him like, hey, look, can you block for me, because I can't land this in a real match. So yeah, good luck if you're trying to fish for that. And that concludes the sand clone guide. I put a lot of effort into this guide, probably the most effort I put into any guide since I started my channel, and it was also really helpful that NRS implemented the replay feature, because that's how I was able to get the slowed down footage of the combos, and you're able to pause it on the clips as well in the replay feature, so that's how I got the screenshots. So props to that feature being implemented in, because that really makes the guide a lot more helpful in my opinion to add those extra details and context and stuff like that. So I really hope this was a helpful guide, and I hope all my explanations made sense. And I'll really hope to see you in the next video, and comment Sandy Cheeks if you made it to the end.